You're listening to Female Founders with Claire Bartlett, the podcast that tells you what it is really like to be a female founder in today's world. We share invaluable insights through personal journeys and real-life business experiences, highlighting the highs and the lows so you can move forward in your business with ease. I am passionate to share with you the realities of business and give you the strategies and simple steps you need to truly succeed with your business. Today's episode is brought to you by Xero Accounting Software, a champion of female entrepreneurs and a proud sponsor of the Female Founders podcast. Managing your business finances can feel overwhelming, but Xero simplifies it all and gives you the power to keep your books in order and your mind on growth. Xero have offered an amazing 50% discount on your first 3 months with them. So if you'd like to take advantage of this amazing deal, just search refer.xero.com/female founders or follow the link in the show notes. Don't forget to give this show a follow to make sure you never miss an episode and share it with any incredible female founders you know. But for now, let's jump into this week's episode. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Female Founders podcast. Today I am joined with Lisa Johnson from Lisa Johnson Strategy, and she has been on a mission to help us all earn more passive income since 2018. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to share some tips with everybody. But first of all, can we just go back to the beginning, back in 2018? What led you onto this path of passive income?
Yeah, so I hadn't really had businesses before. I'd had a business for 3 years at that point in wedding planning. So I had twins and then was working all the hours and was suddenly a single parent. So had to do something different. So ended up working as a PA in an office and just doing something on the side. And that ended up being wedding planning. And I made all the mistakes starting that business, like you do when you start your first business. And so then eventually got that business running really well and people wanted to know how. So I started sort of teaching people about business in general, the things I'd done, the mistakes I'd made. And that worked. You know, people started asking me lots of questions about that and wanting me to work with them. And so I kind of became a consultant by accident, but not in passive income, actually, just in business in general. And then about a year later, a year after I started, I realized that I was making quite a lot of money. I was making 220,000 a year, but I was working so many more hours than in a 9 to 5. And so I had a look at what else was out there. I couldn't really find anything, and then heard people talking about passive income on a podcast and delved a bit deeper into it. People were saying it doesn't exist and, you know, all these kind of things. And I was a curious person, so wanted to know more. And then decided to put half of everything that I had already made in that first year in my business into learning about different passive income streams. So whether that was drop shipping or cryptocurrency or affiliate marketing or courses or memberships, I was doing everything. And then some of them I just discarded. It was like definitely not for me. And then some I just started adding into the business over about an 8 or 9 month period to see what would work and redefined things that worked, try and make them better.
Yeah.
And then at the end of year 2, I was working so many more less hours. So like I went from 80 hours a week to 30 hours a month, but I went from
in that year.
In a year, and I went from earning 220,000 a year to $1 million in that year. And so that was like when I was like, okay, passive income isn't passive income in the way people think it is, but you definitely work less hours if you leverage your time better. And do more things one-to-many instead of one-to-one. And so then I started saying to all my clients who were personal trainers or, you know, anybody that had a one-to-one kind of business, branding, website design, I'd say to them, why don't you just teach people how to do this like on their own and do it one-to-many at the same time online rather than in person? And they were saying, oh yeah, most people are like, I will do that one day, but you know, my one-to-ones are going really well. And I'd be like, but you're going to hit an income ceiling. And they're like, no, we'll see, you know, things are going well. And then COVID hit and everybody wanted to come online. So suddenly
no one had a choice, did they?
No. And there I was teaching people how to. And so we kind of went from doing launches of courses that were making me 300,000 to course launches that made me 2 million in a week. And it changed everything. And then, yeah, we've made a lot of money over the past 7 years that we've been doing that. And now we do lots of different things to do with strategy as well as passive income.
Amazing. And I think it's really interesting what you said, that you had that dream and you were working for yourself, but actually you were working way more hours than if you were just employed. And I think there's people joke about it actually, that, oh yeah, we set up a business to have the freedom, but then we're working more and are
Yeah.
probably earning less than if we were employed. But
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that way. And I think
No.
people just assume that's what you're signing up for if you're going to be an entrepreneur. And actually, you've shown the world at probably, the perfect time, like you say, when COVID hit and everyone was looking for an alternative way of trading, that there is another way and you can have so much more free time,
Yeah.
but actually also be growing your income.
But I kind of think you can eventually. I do think at the beginning you do have to be a bit obsessed with your business.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
You do spend more time on it at the beginning, but you should be doing that to spend less time on it in future years. Like not just constantly working all the time, because I don't think that that gives you the life that you really want.
Yeah. It's about balance, isn't it? And like you say, I read something, and I can't remember where I saw this actually, but they were saying that it's almost like a cult in the very beginning of your business. You're really needing to be like to be living and breathing it. But you go into a business when you have, absolute passion for it.
Yeah.
That isn't sustainable for the long term.
No.
So when you're in that, passion fueled, thinking about it and breathing it every second of every day, make sure that you're doing things in that time to sustain it in the future and to build that
Yeah.
balance.
I think that's really important because 5 years down the line, you won't have the same passion. You
Yeah.
just won't. But also, you if it becomes your whole identity, if your business becomes your whole identity, you'll start resenting the business,
Mm.
even though you're the one that's done it. Like you're
Yeah,
resenting.
you've done it to yourself.
Yeah. Instead, it's much better off to try and find a balance where you still have the old passions that you had in life, whatever your hobbies were, all of those different things, go back to them. You don't want everything to be about business.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And talking about that though, and the separation of yourself and your business, how have you struggled with that? Because obviously your brand and your business is yourself. So it is Lisa Johnson. It always has been, and now it's Lisa Johnson Strategy.
Yeah.
Does that make that more difficult to make that separation?
Not really. I've always thought of my business as a business with me as the CEO, regardless of what the name is. Right from the beginning, that's how I thought. So, if you've got customer service queries coming in or anything like that, you're writing back from the business, not from you.
Yeah.
And I've always separated it out because emotionally, imagine if emotionally you were tied into it as much as that. Like somebody complains, they're complaining about you as a person, and that can
Mm.
get really messy. Whereas they're complaining about the service from a business. You're just the CEO of that business. At the moment, you might not always be the CEO of it. So I've never really struggled with it. What I did struggle is when I took people's advice, which was, it shouldn't always be your name. Like now that you've got up to this level, making multi seven figures, it needs to be a business on its own brand. You're just the head of it. So I changed the name of it and it became much more about my team than me. And I did that for a year before I realized how much I hated it. And I wanted it to be back being me because it is a personal brand. And the thing I'm good at is building personal brands, not building just random brands that anyone can have. I don't think that's the right way to go about things. I know that's what people teach because everybody's so talks about going into things to sell them. But sometimes I think your personal brand isn't one to sell. I think it's one that you love and that you will just do for as long as you want to. I don't think you need to sell it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, especially with what you do, people are coming to work with you because of you and how you teach it and your personal experiences. And I think if you strip that away,
Yeah.
then like you say, then you're just another business doing
Yeah.
it. But you are what differentiates you. So
Even
yeah.
like we did small things, like for one to many, we started doing things like taking me away from it a little bit and maybe recording some of the modules and that kind of thing. And there was uproar. immediately. Like, that isn't what people wanted. And I didn't really want it either. I just thought that's what I should do.
Yeah.
Actually, I really enjoy training live.
Yeah.
It's what I'm in it for.
Isn't it funny though that this just proves that it does not matter what stage of business you are at, you always have that little bit of self-doubt and confusion and where you're wanting it to go. And I think people look up to the seven-figure businesses like yourself and others and think you have everything sorted. You know exactly what you're doing every day and you know where you're going. And it's not true, is it? We all
Of
have
course
those.
not. And we have to make decisions, and sometimes we make the wrong decisions. And also, I think it's really easy to get swept up in what the world is telling us we should want, especially online, because everything's on social media. So the world is telling me to go to 8 figures now. Like, that's what the whole world is shouting for me to do. Like, oh, now you're at multi-7, it's time to scale that to 8.
Yeah.
And you get to a point where you no longer know what you started for. Like, I had to literally stop at the beginning of 2023 and go, I don't know whose version of success I'm following anymore, but I don't think it's mine, because I'm not very happy doing some of the things I'm doing. But this is what everyone does. This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to always grow, always go upwards. And I stopped and I put a plan in place that was about my version of success, which actually meant decreasing the business, decreasing how much money we're making, doing things in a different way, doing things in a more boutique way, not working, with so many people on everything we do. And that's worked really well for me. I've really enjoyed doing things that are a bit smaller. Yes, one-to-many is always going to be my big course, but there's lots of other things I can do with just 10 or 20 people in. And
Yeah.
I really like that. I think I'm starting to think that everything is about quality over quantity. I'd rather put things out that are real quality than quantity of things. And so we've streamlined everything. And now we only actually offer 4 things. We had about 17.
Wow. And it's you claiming back the balance, I suppose, isn't it? And there's a story that I've heard you share before, which I love, about when you got invited to Richard Branson's island. And this is, the pinnacle. If you've had that invite, then you've made it. You're in that world. But you decided you didn't fancy that actually, and it wasn't really for you, and you
Yeah,
turned
I
it
didn't
down.
know that at the time. I was going to go. I paid the money to go. Like, you go as part of a mastermind of people that get invited to go. And I paid to go, and it wasn't cheap. We're talking like 70,000 for me and my husband.
Wow.
And it's non-refundable. So, like, you pay because you're going. And it was only 2 weeks before I was going that I realized that I was on a train that I didn't want to be on. Like, because everyone else was doing it didn't mean I have to. Because everyone else was hanging out with the same people doesn't mean that I need to. I can have my own version of success, and that might be something completely different. And actually, it was completely different. I wanted to be with my friends who were going to the local Chinese restaurant in my hometown. And that's what they were doing at the same time as I was going to be in Necker Island. And they were saying to me, "Oh, you're going to be in Necker?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, we're going to the Chinese. We'll like send you a message and send you a picture of us all at the Chinese when you're in Necker, you lucky thing," kind of thing. And all I was doing was sitting there going, "I don't want to go. I want to be with these people." Yeah. Like, what am I doing? There are very few people in that group of people that I was going with that I had any respect for, because you see things from the inside and then you see what people are putting on the outside a lot of the time. There were a few in there that were really close friends and that I'm still really friends with today, but there were so many that I thought, like, alignment wise, integrity wise, I don't want to be seen with you.
Wow.
And so by going, it would have been like saying that integrity doesn't matter, because your status matters more.
Yeah.
Being seen at Necker matters more. And that's never what I'm going to be about. And so I just didn't go.
It's kind of selling out, I suppose, isn't it? If you know it doesn't really align with you and fit with you, but you go anyway because that's what you should do, and
And you'll
for your
make more
social
money.
media and
Like,
things.
yeah, everyone knows if you hang around with the right people, people pay you more.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm never going to care about those kind of things. Like, I was never in this to make millions of pounds. I was in this to impact a load of people and to cover the 2K a month that my job was before that.
Well, I think you can safely say you've done that, Lisa, in the you've done
Exactly.
it's an amazing journey, and I think I've done one to many. That's where I first came across you, wasn't it? That was in 23 that I took that course. And I think it's the way that you package it that it suits any type of business. Anyone can move this to this one to many model, but you sometimes have to just think outside the box and you have to figure out how to do it. It can't be carbon copy what you do to one
No.
to one. Suddenly just say, I'm going to do that for 10 people in one go. It doesn't work like that, does it?
You have to make it work. You have to
Yeah,
make it fit. And what I've loved about One to Many over the years, we're doing it for 7 years now, and we still have hundreds of success stories every year. That's what I love about it. But we don't just have success stories from people in business. We have so many people start that have never had a business before.
yeah,
Stay-at-home mums, older people, people that have never had a business. And they start a business because of One to Many. And then they write to me about all the stuff they're doing. And it's so rewarding to see that you're not just helping people who already have money make more money. You're
yeah.
helping people right from the trenches.
Yeah, I love that. And I came back in this year for you to be a pod leader. So I was supporting a group, and there was a lot of people in there that were completely green and had never had a business before. And it was really lovely to see them work through it. But one of the things that I know that you have to repeatedly tell them and remind them is that this is not an overnight thing. And it wasn't overnight for you, and it isn't overnight for anybody. And actually, probably for the first like 6 months to a year, it's just about building that audience and the grafting to put the
Right.
foundations in place, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there were enough fake get rich quick schemes out there without me adding to it. And I knew that from the very beginning. And while lots of people were saying, oh, if you want to get people to come into your course, you need to use copy that says that, they can make their money back in the first month. I'm like, it's not true. You'll
Yeah.
get a unicorn that does that. Every now and again, we get somebody that happens to make all their money back within the first few weeks. But in the main, it will take longer. It's a long-term sustainable business. And so you expect that it's going to take 6 months to a year to be able to really start seeing a big difference.
Yeah. So it's about patience, isn't it? And playing that long game. But if you go into something knowing that from the start, so you don't have false expectations of, what reality you're going to be facing, I think that's achievable. That's okay. But like you say, when you go into courses and they say you'll make X in 4 weeks and then you don't,
You feel like
then
a
that can
failure.
yeah, well, you can lose your faith in the entire business then,
Yeah,
can't you? So it's really important for people to understand that passive income is real and it can be hugely successful. And any business in whatever format can be hugely successful, but it doesn't happen overnight. And when people turn up in your world, you just appeared one day for me on social media and I was like, this is amazing. And to me, you've just suddenly appeared and then suddenly you're everywhere. It's always
yeah,
the way, isn't it?
always the
So
way.
I could have said, oh, Lisa's just made it overnight. She's just an overnight success. But you'd had years
Yeah,
previous to that, testing and trialing and building that business. And
people
that's
say
what
that all the
people don't.
time. People say all the time, oh, well, you made it really quickly. You were an overnight success. They conveniently forget that I slogged it out for 3 years in the wedding business, like
Yeah.
every day to get to the point where I knew what I was doing in business.
Yeah.
It looks like an overnight success because people only see you when you start becoming visible. But
Yeah, exactly.
when you're trying to get visible and you're doing all the things, people don't know you're doing that. It takes
Yeah.
time.
It takes time and it's a painful journey. It's not rainbows and butterflies every day, is it? You have to really
No.
push through and remember the reasons why you're doing it.
And that the money comes from the unsexy things.
Yeah.
Not the fun things that you see, like, going on retreats and being on yachts and all of the nice things that we get to do. The money comes from the boring, consistent, everyday, unsexy things.
Yeah. So, what's your tip to make sure you're constantly showing up, even when you're not feeling great, or you're having a really bad day, or something's going on, and you just can't be bothered that day? How do you make sure that you still show up every day?
There are two things I do. The first thing I do is always remember that if I had a boss, I wouldn't be able to go, I'm just not really feeling like it today. So I'm not coming in or doing your filing. Like
Yeah.
you just wouldn't be able to. It's when people say, like spiritual people often say, energetically, I'm just not feeling it today. Like you try telling that to a boss, it wouldn't wash. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing that I always remember. But the second thing I think is if you're a really honest person, and I think we should be online, I think we should stop trying to curate perfect feeds. If you're really honest, you can show up and say, I'm feeling crap today. I did that today. Like, you can tell I have a bad chest at the moment. My voice is a bit croaky. But I showed up and I say, my voice is a bit croaky today. I'm feeling a bit rough, but let's give things a go. Like, if you can be honest about it, then there's no expectation for you to show up perfectly. And I think if you take the expectation away for you to be perfect all the time and for you to be happy and positive all the time, then you're much more likely to do things consistently.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And, I talk a lot about being authentic and just being yourself online. Like today, for instance, I've got no makeup on for this. I thought, me wearing makeup or not is not going to change the value of the content in this episode.
Absolutely.
I don't wear, half the time I look like I'm doing the school run because that's basically what I'm getting ready to do every day. But that is not impacting my business. And if it is, if people are judging me on that, then they're in the wrong place. They're not, they're not my people.
Yeah.
And I think we're finally coming out the other side very slowly, that this perfect, Insta lifestyle isn't real, and people are wanting the more authentic connections with people. If I'm choosing who I'm going to work with, I'd rather they say, actually, I'm having a bit of a, rough time at the moment, my emotions, my perimenopause, whatever it is, because that is how I can relate to them. That makes
Yeah.
it much more believable to me that, what you're selling is
Yeah.
genuine.
I think it's really important. I actually think there has always been people that would rather see a real, raw person
Mhm.
than a curated feed. Definitely since I've come online, I very quickly realized that I didn't want to be like anybody else out there because everyone looked so perfect when I came online 8 years ago. And, they were all the perfect size and the perfect hair and in the perfect locations. And I didn't resonate with them. And I thought, well, if I don't, other people might not.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, then I'm just going to act like me and I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. And that really worked for me straight away.
Mm. I love it. And you've spoken quite openly throughout your journey about how there's a lot of inauthenticity online. And one thing I talk about, so my original business I've had for 10 years now is bookkeeping and accounting. So the figures are really important to me. So
Yes.
when there's so many people shouting about having a 6-figure business or a
Yeah.
7-figure business, and I'm like, we can all have a 6-figure turnover. That's quite easy to achieve. But what's the bottom line telling you? And that people sell these dreams that just aren't genuine. And
Yeah.
it's really hard to pick out the genuine
Who's
people
real and who's not.
online.
And the long and short of it is, even the people that are telling the truth, that have a multi-7 or a 7-figure business with profit that is at 7 figures like we do, it doesn't mean they're happy.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling one tiny piece of a story, which is how much money the business is making. That doesn't tell you anything about contentment, health, you know, family, relationships, achievements, things that actually matter. It just is one part of it. And we need to stop being drawn in by that one part because it's not the most important part.
No, 100%. And I say a lot about, and you've mentioned it already today, your version of success, because success is a really personal thing. Some people might want 100 grand a month. Some people might want less than 100 grand a year, but they want to be able to sustain their dream lifestyle.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of pressure online about this success, but nobody can actually pin down what they're selling when they talk about success.
And what
So
success is, like, it has to be what your enough number is.
yeah,
Like, when we start talking to people, we're like, what do you want? Like, let's work out, because it's all right saying I want more money for what? Like, for a start, but let's work out what the purpose is. Then let's work out what your enough number is. How much do you actually need to make a month to have everything you want in your life? It's often a lot lower than 7 figures. And yet that's what everybody seems to be shouting about. Making 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures comes with sacrifices. And I don't think people realize that. There are sacrifices that you're going to make the whole way along. And some of those sacrifices are really worth it, but some won't be. And so, if you know that there are going to be sacrifices, you might make different decisions. You might decide, actually, a 6-figure business is okay if it means you get to see your kids more.
yeah.
You might say, okay, 7-figure business is okay. But if it's going to impact my mental health, then I'm going to stop at multi-6 instead. But at least you make those choices. But people aren't even thinking about what they will or won't sacrifice. They're just so intent on these arbitrary figures that people have literally made up, that they don't think about anything else. And that's where I mean, I have friends with 8-figure businesses who their relationships are ruined, their health is ruined. Like, they don't like their life. They've got a load of money,
Mm.
but what's the point of that if you don't like your life?
It's such an age-old saying, isn't it? But money genuinely cannot buy you happiness.
It
It
can
can
buy you
help you live the
experiences.
life.
Yeah, it can buy you experiences, it can open opportunities for you, but you
Mm.
can have a really extraordinary life with not much money.
Yeah, yeah. And you now, because you've had this success, you live quite a fabulous life and you do lots of amazing things. But you know, you were pushing for the higher figures because, like you say, that's what society was telling that you should do. And you've now realized some of those sacrifices aren't worth it for you, and you're bringing that back. Did that impact you while you were on that trajectory, though? The relationship you had with your children, did they?
No, I didn't let it.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw people who were above me in the chain of how much money they were making and what they were doing, as soon as I saw their relationships breaking down, and as soon as I saw, even I had clients that were working so hard to get to these figures they wanted to make that they never saw their kids, and their relationships broke up with their husbands. As soon as I saw this happening, I stopped. And I was like, this isn't happening to me. I need to recalibrate and go, what's the most important thing to me? And then what won't I sacrifice, and what will I? And then I actually sat down with my family and said, right, what will we give up to have more time together? And even the kids were like, we'll give up the house. We don't need a massive house with a swimming pool. We won't give up travel. And we all have the same ideas. We're all exactly the same. We don't really care about material things, but we really care about experiences, and we really want to see the world. So when you make that list, then we were like, okay, well, that means if we sold this house and got another house, we'd have no mortgage. So that would give me a lot more time because I'd need to make a hell of a lot less money. And so then, you can make these choices. One of the choices I've always wanted to make is to have more of a boutique feel to some of my programs, especially my masterminds. But because of how much money we need to make in the business, it was always like, well, let's get another 20 in. Let's get another 50 in. And I longed for this time when I could go, well, let's just have 10. And I'm now at the position where I'm able to do that and go, if we get 10, that's great. Let's not push. Let's get the right amount.
Yeah. And then, this gives you the control back, I suppose, that you're not being led by the money, you're being led by the service that you can provide, the quality, like you said earlier, quality over quantity. And I think it's an interesting journey, though, I suppose, for you, because you started on the one-to-one and doing the small, more boutique sessions. Then you went to thousands of people doing one course at a time with you. And now you still have that, the one-to-many course will always be, I presume, sort of unlimited and a lot of people. But then around that, the majority of the other things that you're doing,
Yeah.
you've really clawed that back, and you have sessions at your house now, don't you? And people are working with you on a one-to-one model
Yeah,
again.
not many, about 3 at a time. I
Yeah.
don't do many one-to-ones because I still want quality.
Yeah.
And I think if you start doing too many one-to-ones, you're not thinking about those people all the time. And I want to, if they're
Yeah.
paying me a certain amount of money, I want to make sure they're getting what they paid for. With one-to-many, with my flagship program, I will always have lots of people in there because that's where I get the most impact. I can impact the most amount of people there for £197 a month. It's affordable for most people.
Yeah.
But what we have done in there is tried to make it more boutique feel by having pods,
Yeah.
by having places that people can just be around a few people at a time to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose then it's bringing that collaboration, because I remember the main group for one to many, especially in the very beginning when everyone is super hyped, it can feel quite overwhelming, can't it?
Yeah, it's like I always say, go out of the group if you're
Yeah.
the person that feels overwhelmed, and come back in 2 weeks when no
Yeah.
one's talking.
Yeah. And so the pods this year, I know, really helped with that, because you had a small group of people that you could really connect with and moan and talk things through
Yeah.
and support each other, which I don't think is possible to that level in that main group, is it?
No.
So
definitely isn't. That's why we did it. And why we'll continue to do it, because it just works so well. Because then we've got the main group where if I need to give information out to people, people do see it. It's not overrun. But then you have these little smaller groups, and people have made their best friends in one-to-many. People have had bridesmaids from one-to-many. It's like amazing the connections that people get from it. And that's part of what I love, is connecting people.
Yeah.
It works well.
That's incredible. So when we talk about one-to-many, and for those people who haven't sort of come across you or really come across passive income before, what is one-to-many? What is the thought process behind it? And when we're talking about going from one-to-one to one-to-many, what are we talking about?
The process behind it was, when I wanted to go one-to-many, I wanted to put, whenever I was doing one-to-one, people were asking me the same questions. So I was like, if I could just put this into a course and I could tell 10 people instead of one at the same time, they could pay me less and I could impact more people. So I was like, well, I'll put a course together. So I bought a course on how to write a course. And I did it, and I wrote the course. And I was like, well, now what? I haven't got an audience to sell it to. So then I bought another course on how to create an audience, grow an audience. And I did that, grew an audience. And then I was like, well, I haven't known how to sell it or launch it. So then I bought another course on launching, and on and on. And I got so annoyed by it that I knew, when I'd made this work myself, I was going to create a program that was end to end. From very beginning, never done anything before, right the way to launching 7 multi-7-figure courses. And that's where it came from. And that's why I started doing it. And it was just amazing to see the results that came out of it. Like, I mean, anyone that's seen one-to-many will see how many people online, like, there's not many people that are successful in the UK online that didn't start with one-to-many. Like,
That's an amazing thing to be able to
it's
say.
amazing. Like, you talk to somebody and people go, oh, I've got this coach, they're really good, they're making multi-7 figures and they're doing this and that. I'll be like, yeah, they started in one-to-many 7 years ago. Like, so many people started there. And now, because time has gone on, I'm seeing all these amazing things that they've done since. It's brilliant to watch, and they're impacting so many different people.
I love that. And I think when we're talking about one-to-one to one-to-many, it's about, stop transferring time for money, because
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier, we all have an income limit and a time limit in our lives. And if we want to increase that income, but not work anymore, or even better, decrease the amount of hours, then you have to change something in your business, don't you? And
Yeah.
changing that, me and you having this session now, say it was a one-to-one and I'm helping you. If I could create that course, like you mentioned, and suddenly have 10 people on here, then I've increased my income. But what I think is really beautiful about it is that you're saying, actually, it benefits you as well, because I can charge you less. I don't have to
Yeah.
charge you that premium amount.
Yeah, because everybody has a premium amount. Time's the only thing you can't get back. So let's say you're a personal trainer. You're going to charge the most amount for one-on-one, because you can't, that's your time.
Yeah.
Or a website designer. You take the money, you will design their website and you will give it to them, but that's going to take you time and expertise. Or you can teach other people how to do it themselves, many at a time, and charge them a lot less, whether that's an exercise class instead of personal training, or whether it's teaching them how to put a website together instead of you doing it. Or you can teach people how to be you, and do exactly what you do. I think the other thing that people don't realize is this doesn't have to just be about business. I've had so many success stories from people that have used life experience as their thing, whether it's going through a divorce, helping others who want to go through a divorce fill out the paperwork, whether it's hula hooping, knitting, potty training, how to be a father of daughters. There has been courses and memberships on everything you can imagine, sex, dating. And that's what I love about it, because we all have knowledge that someone will pay for. It's just knowing how to package it up and sell it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what we do.
What do you say to people, though, when they come to you and they say, I'm a website designer? Surely, if I then teach everyone to do that, I'm putting myself out of the job.
Yeah, and people always say that. But the thing is, there's always going to be people out there that can't be bothered to do it themselves. Like, people either have time or money. And if they have more money, they are going to save time by paying you to do it for them. If they don't have enough money, they have time. And so you can teach them how to do it themselves. So you're always going to have both anyway. You never teach yourself out of business, put it that way.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, again, it's about becoming an expert in your field, isn't it? So if you have taught 20 people to design their own website and they all rave about how great you were and when they get complimented, they mention you, that's putting you at the height in your industry, in your profession. And again, then
Yeah.
I think that can help you.
And what really is an expert as well? Like people
Yeah.
say, well, I'm not an expert. An expert is the person that knows the most in a room.
Yeah.
Well, we're all experts in something then. We just need to work out what it is and sell that.
Yeah. I think that's it's it's about mindset, isn't it? And shifting your mindset about how you analyze things. And I think there is a huge amount of self-belief in there. You have to believe that you know enough and have the confidence then to go out and tell people that you are,
Yeah.
you know the most on this in this topic. And I think the mindset is where a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah.
Now, I know with you, for instance, you weren't into the woo at all for a long while, were you? And it was all about, just you personally driving for it. But you've started to embrace it slightly.
I'm with you, Jason. I still am not a big believer in any of it, but I am more open to it. What I've always said is if spirituality is done in a nice way, in a good way, then there's nothing wrong with it. Because if it gives people hope, why does it doesn't really matter, does it?
Exactly.
What gives
Yeah.
them that hope? It means they're going to do more action. If they do more action, they're going to get more results, and therefore I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's the spirituality I don't agree with is when it's done with malicious intent, of which there is a lot. But you can say that about anything, not just spirituality, sales, anything. So it's just exactly the same. We've all seen people use spirituality to manipulate online, and that I don't like.
No. Do you believe in the power of like manifestation and affirmations and those sorts of things to help you with
Yeah.
that self-belief?
Yeah. I don't believe in manifestation in the way that some people teach it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that if you draw a picture of a house and put it under your pillow, one day you'll get that house. That is how I was taught manifestation from The Secret. I do believe that manifestation is just putting a plan of action in place, knowing what you want and going for it. If you don't know what you want, you can't possibly get there. Manifesting is just knowing what you want in action.
Yeah. And then
Taking the steps. And so, yeah, you're more likely to get there. It's the ones where they're like, oh, I manifested a parking space. Like, come on. It's those that
drive around long enough and there will be a parking space.
exactly. It's a bit eye-rolly for me. But I feel like, yes, you need to have a focus. And your mindset does need to believe you can do it. Henry Ford said, if you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you're right. And that's right. If you don't believe something's going to work, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Because you won't put the energy into it.
So how did you have the confidence in yourself in the beginning to push for, the success that you have? And did you, in the beginning, always plan to have the level of success that you have now? What did that look like for you in the beginning?
Well, first of all, I didn't have any confidence in the beginning. I don't think many people do, but I am also a believer that if you do something enough, you gain the confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to try things. But in the beginning, I just wanted to earn enough money not to have to go back to work so that I could see my 4-year-old twins. It's as simple as that. And I got that. And then what gave me the confidence is the results that other people were getting. I think that it usually is that. I also had confidence because I am somebody that was bullied as a child. And so I believe that you can use negativity and things that have happened to you as a superpower. Like, all I wanted was to prove people wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people told me I would be nothing and I couldn't amount to anything, and when people online told me I'd never get anywhere, all that did was make me want to prove them wrong. That definitely spurred me on for a few years to get to multi-7 figures. Your problem with that is when you start doing inner work and you realize that actually external validation doesn't matter at all and you don't need to prove anything to anyone, your reason suddenly goes and you find a new one. But yeah, it's, I think that different things can push you at different times of your life and business. And it's finding the one that will motivate you the most. So, you know, I've been through lots of different evolutions of what I need. Sometimes it's been money. Sometimes it's been freedom. Sometimes it's been proving people wrong. Now it's about impact. That's what matters to me. And yeah, you evolve.
Yeah, they evolve as the business does, don't you? And
Yeah,
through the length of time that you've been in business, and the same for me, you know, our reasons and our drive in the beginning are completely different now. And I was
completely.
going to mention the bullying actually to you because I have a very similar story. You know, I did not have the nicest school experience, to put it, you know, politely. And I know that the as you grow and the more success you see, suddenly those bullies come back out online, and they're, you know, those keyboard warriors. And I absolutely love how you've dealt with that, because you've spun it into a positive, and now you actually use their um their quote,
Trolling quotes.
yeah, um to raise money, don't you, for charities, and you put them on t-shirts. How That's an amazing thing to be doing with them now. How did they impact you when it first started happening, and how did you shield yourself and your emotions from that
Yeah.
negativity?
I think that because it happened really early, it was a good thing. So the biggest fear that I had coming online and being visible was I'd get bullied again, because I'd been bullied so much in earlier life. And people told me it wouldn't happen. It doesn't really happen. Of course it does.
Mm.
Um, and it happened really quickly. Like within the first year, I got really badly bullied, more
Wow.
badly bullied than I've ever been in that first year. And so I had to grow a thick skin really quickly. I nearly gave up when it happened. I did hide for a while, if I'm honest about it. But then somebody said to me that you can either hide or come out of this industry that you dislike so much of, or you can show people that it doesn't have to be this way by becoming so successful that people listen to you and see there's a different way of doing things. And that seemed like a good thing to do. And so that's what I did.
That's what you did.
Um, and then the more you, weirdly, the more trolling you get, the more successful you are. And the more successful you are, the more you know other people who are also successful. And they get trolling all the time. Suddenly it doesn't become very, very relevant. If 10 of you are getting trolling every day, it becomes none of you,
It
because it
takes
doesn't
the
matter.
personal edge off it.
Yeah, because we're all getting it all the time. So it doesn't mean anything. I think it's why celebrities and influencers can cope with, you know, all the messages they get on Tattle and those kind of things, because they know it's going to happen, because that's what they all get. And I learned a lot about how hurt people, and how you will never be trolled by someone doing better than you, which don't, you know, that can be a good
And
thing.
that's a very powerful statement. I love that.
Yeah. But it also makes you think, if they're not doing better than you, what is going on in their lives?
Mm.
Why are they feeling insecure? Why are they feeling they need to do this? They're not doing it from a good place. How must they feel every day, being that type of person that feels so jealous or so triggered by you that they need to say mean things? That can't be a good place to live in either. So it's a lot, if you learn this stuff about where it really comes from, we're all our 6-year-old selves, I believe, just acting like we did then. And if we learn that, it's really hard to be angry with people. And if you're not angry with people, it doesn't affect you as much at all. If you just sort of pity people and go, oh, I hope they're not having, you know, for them to act like that, they must be having a really crap time in life.
Yeah.
So I can't really feel angry at someone that's going through that. And so I did nothing for a long time. I just ignored pretty much everything. I used to defend myself online, especially from other competitors. Now I just don't even I don't even bother. I don't even care what's being said. But I had a few people come to me who were clients who were being trolled. And it made me think, what can I do that will stop them feeling like this? Because they're not at the stage where they're seeing all of their peers being trolled as well.
Yeah.
And so that's how I came up with the t-shirt idea, because I thought, if I can make t-shirts with these slogans on that people are saying to me, whether it's she only makes her money on OnlyFans, or oh my God, she looks like an Essex fishwife, all these different things that people have said. Someone once said, we choose the best ones, the funniest ones. Someone once said, she looks like a cross between Claudia Winkleman and Alan Partridge. And I loved it. That was the first one I put on a t-shirt because I wanted to wear it.
Yeah.
And then other people bought these t-shirts. And so we said, well, why don't we give some of the money to Bullies Out, who I'm an ambassador of? But what that did was it made other people, when they started to get trolled and bullied, instead of breaking down, they'd bring it to me and go, look, I've got a comment that I can put on a t-shirt. And it became something people wanted.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it only affects you if you let it affect you. If you see it in a different way, it becomes a very different thing. But that's with everything in life. And that shows us that, because if people are now excited to get troll comments because they can make it into a t-shirt, that shows that it never really should have hurt us in the first place.
Yeah. I think with anything in business, the first time anything happens in a slightly negative way will impact us. I think it's really hard to not, when you haven't built that shell. So I remember, for instance, in my bookkeeping business, the first time a client left us, I remember phoning my husband and crying in tears, like, why is this happening? It was absolutely nothing to do with us and our service. And actually, it happens quite a lot in that industry. And now, don't blink an eye at it. It is what it is. It's like water, and they come and go. But I remember the first time that happened, it really impacted me. And I think it's the same with lots of things. When you face any negativity, it's hard to have that shell before you've experienced it. So
you get used to it.
Yeah, but I think learning the things that you're saying and saying, when that does happen to you, if you do get those negative comments, think about, it's almost that they deserve your sympathy more than your anger, because they're obviously in a really bad place themselves. And I think that can really help reframe the mind to not take it, not lose sleep over it, not take that into yourself and allow it to fester inside you, I think, which is so important, because it takes courage to put ourselves out there to gain that visibility. It takes bravery and confidence. And sometimes, and like you said in the beginning, you didn't have that confidence. You're sort of faking it till you make it. You're pushing yourself. And the more that you do it, the more comfortable you feel with it. But it's not natural to any of us, I don't think. So it's about preparing yourself, I suppose. It happens to everybody. And the fact that now it's kind of a celebration. I'm in a WhatsApp group with some other business owners, and the other day someone put in, look, I've made it. I've got my first troll. And it's just changing the narrative. And I think that's a really, really beautiful thing, that now we can look at it and not, take it to heart and not feel that impact that it once probably had on a lot of people. I haven't had any near enough good enough for t-shirts yet, but I'll keep my eye out and I'll keep you posted when that happens.
Keep your eye out.
So, Lars, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today, Lisa. Honestly, I think there's so much just beauty in your journey, and the things that you've been through and the things that you're still intending, to do with your business. If there is someone listening to this right now who is, burnt out, they've really reached their capacity in their business, and they're thinking about passive income, or just, how they can change their business, what are the 3 things that you would say for them to look at and just to consider within their business right now?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is write down who you'd really love to work with in a one-to-many capacity, who you want to impact. Then go and ask those people what they want, what their problems are. Come up with a solution that you can give them for free or for very low cost to build your audience. Because once you've built that audience, everything else is easy.
It just falls into place.
Yeah.
And do you say, because there's the conversation all the time about ticket prices, and they have a low ticket offer, high ticket offer, place yourself in the middle. So, do you agree that in the beginning to just do those low ticket offers just to grow that audience?
I don't think that's the first thing that you should do. I think first you should do one-to-one to get your high ticket in.
Yes.
So that you're not worried about the money. Then I think you should do low ticket to grow the audience.
So when you go into that first one-to-many model, that's when you create that lower ticket offer. Brilliant. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you as the best place for them to find you if they want to connect?
Best place is Instagram at Lisa Johnson Strategist. I'm always on there and I answer my own Instagram, so you'll get me if you write to me.
Amazing. And you have a podcast as well, don't you?
Yeah, my new podcast is At Home with the Johnsons, and it's me and my husband and kids. And just life and business in one, really, that podcast.
Amazing. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. All to our listeners, thank you for sticking with us. I will see you all next week on our next episode. And for now, Lisa, thank you once again, and I will catch up with you soon.
Thanks.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, which was brought to you by Xero Accounting Software, a champion of female entrepreneurs and a proud sponsor of the Female Founders podcast. If you're running a small business and you're dreaming big, then Xero is here to help make those dreams a reality. Xero is all about supporting women like you, who are not just running businesses, but are also changing the game. So whether you're just starting out or you're scaling up, join a global community of female founders who trust Xero to manage their finances efficiently. Just visit refer.xero.com/female founders to learn more. But for now, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this episode with all the incredible female founders you know. And together, let's change what it means to be a female founder in today's world.